All right, let's jump right in. We all think we know the story of Moses, right? The baby in the basket, floating down the Nile, saved from a death sentence. It's one of the most iconic stories ever told. But what if I told you that the core of that story, the baby, the basket, the river, was actually told 1,000 years earlier, and it was about a ruthless, empire-building king?
And that's the big idea we're going to dig into today. See, the story of Moses isn't just some copy-paste job. Oh no. It's a total revolutionary reinvention. It takes a story originally designed to prop up a king and completely flips the script to be about freedom from kings. So, how do they do it? Let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first, let's just quickly run through the story we all know and love. The one that's been told for thousands of years. The one from the book of Exodus.
You know the details. They're unforgettable. The Pharaoh of Egypt orders all newborn Hebrew boys to be killed. So, a desperate mother does the only thing she can think of. She puts her baby in a little reed basket, seals it up with tar, that's bitumen, and sets him afloat on the river. And who finds him? Pharaoh's own daughter. He grows up in the palace and, well, becomes a prophet who leads his people out of slavery. It's the ultimate hero story.
But, and this is where it gets really fascinating, was this the first time a story like this was ever told? The answer is a hard no. As foundational as this story feels to us, its key plot points were already ancient.
So let's hop in our time machine. We're going way, way back to ancient Mesopotamia. And we're going to meet a guy named Sargon of Akkad. Now, this was one of the very first and most famous empire builders in all of human history.
Just look at this timeline. We're talking about a huge gap. The legend of Sargon of Akkad pops up around 2300 BCE. The story of Moses? That's dated to around 1300 BCE. So Sargon's story was already 1,000 years old. That's, a massive head start. So what exactly is this ancient story?
Okay, get ready, because this is probably going to sound a little familiar. Sargon's mother was a high priestess, so she had to keep his birth a secret. What does she do? She puts him in a basket of reeds, seals it up tight with bitumen, and places him on the river. Sound familiar yet? Now, he's not found by a princess, but by a regular guy, a water drawer. But from that simple start, he rises up to conquer all of Mesopotamia and becomes this legendary emperor. I mean, come on, the parallels are just undeniable.
All right, so is it the same story? Let's put them side by side and really break down the details. Because when you see it laid out like this, you realize this is way beyond just a simple coincidence.
Okay, look at this. It's not just a general resemblance, the details are crazy specific. A baby hidden away because its life is in danger? Check. A basket made of reeds? Check. Sealed with bitumen? I mean, that's a super specific detail, but check again. Placed on a river? You bet. The basic story beats are identical. But then you get to that last row, the outcome. And that, my friends, is where everything, and I mean everything, changes. And this is the whole point. The parallels are absolutely undeniable, but the purpose of the story? It's radically different. The writers of Exodus weren't just lifting a cool story they'd heard. No, they were taking a story everyone knew and completely turning its meaning inside out. This was a deliberate, powerful act of storytelling judo.
So let's talk about how this tale got transformed. How do you take a story that's all about imperial power and turn it into a story about liberation? It really comes down to this. You've got one archetype, but two completely different meanings. Sargon's story? That's royal propaganda, plain and simple. It's a story for an emperor, designed to say, hey, this guy was chosen by the gods, he was destined to rule. It justifies his power. But Moses' story, that's a liberation narrative. It's a story for the people, a story that says our identity comes from our fight for freedom against an emperor. It's the total opposite. You know, Sargon's story fits a classic pattern. Scholars actually have a name for it, an imperial trope. It's basically a common story theme that gets used over and over again to make a ruler look good, to justify their power and make it seem like they have some kind of divine destiny. It's a storytelling tool for the powerful.
But the story of Moses? That does something brand new. It creates what we could call an anti-imperial liberation narrative. It takes all the same ingredients, the secret birth, the baby on the river, but it bakes a completely different cake. The goal isn't to prop up a ruler's power. The goal is to establish a people's right to be free from that power.
And that's why the Exodus narrative is so revolutionary. It essentially takes a story built for a king and gives it to the people. It democratizes the whole idea of a special destiny. Suddenly, it's not the emperor who's special, it's this entire community of liberated slaves.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool connection, but why does it really matter? Well, this is way more than just a bit of historical trivia. It gets to the very heart of how stories shape our world.
Because here's the crucial takeaway. This isn't about who told the story first. Playing gotcha with history misses the point entirely. It's all about how the story is used. You have one version that's all about legitimizing an emperor's power, and then you have this other version that becomes the founding story for a people's identity, an identity based on a covenant and freedom. What we're witnessing here is basically the birth of an anti-imperial idea, all wrapped up in a familiar story.
So that leaves us with this one big question to think about. What really happens when a story that was designed to celebrate power gets retold as a story of freedom? The tale of these two babies shows us that the stories we tell are powerful, for sure, but the way we tell them and who we tell them for can literally change the world.